Hi, I'm Kristen, and in today's video, I am going to be giving you a list of transitional reads to help you bridge that slightly awkward and annoying gap between summer and autumn. So if you are sick to death of sweating weather and are dying for sweater weather, stick around and I'm going to offer you a list of books that have warm temperatures, but plenty of autumn elements sprinkled on in. Welcome back. This is the first time I get to say that, yay, to Lit Couture. I am what you would call a seasonal reader. I really loathe the cognitive dissonance that I experience when I am reading a book from my beloved fall TBR. And when I close that book and then step outside, it is 90 degrees and it completely destroys me because I'm not really a summer girly, in case you haven't noticed the complexion here. What I usually don't see in the beginning of September are transitional lists. This transitional TBR is going to bring you books that are set in hot, sticky summer weather, and I also made sure we have autumnal elements. We've got murder, we've got ghosts, we've got witches, we've got a cult. We're even heading on down to New Orleans where we're gonna meet psychics and possibly some vampires. It's a little nebulous. But without further ado, I think it is time to get into the list of books. You will have heard of this amazing book before, but have you seen the amazing fabled edition of Bewitched? Isn't she gorgeous? Ah, absolutely stunning, right? Fabled is a book box based out of Australia, if you're curious. Yes, the shipping is absolutely excruciating, but I sure think it's worth it. Look at her. Okay, so this is Bewitched by Laura Thalassa, and I think if you're gonna pick one book on this list that is absolutely, truly perfect for the theme, because we begin in a hot, miserable jungle with really large bugs, and head into the beginning of the fall semester at a nice academic setting. This is the perfect book, and oh my gosh, this is the first romantic book I get to talk to you about on my channel, and let me tell you, that is absolutely my favorite genre. In case you couldn't tell by the squealing, I'll try and calm it down a little. Sorry. So we begin in a nice, steamy, sticky jungle right after a plane crash that was brought down by some nefarious, mysterious, magical sources coming from the jungle below. And we meet our wonderful girl, Celine. Now, Celine has just saved the plane by running into the cockpit and using her magic, mostly without the mortals noticing too much, and she has brought the plane down and kept all these people from dying a horrible fiery death, so yay, Celine. Now, Celine is pretty pissed at this point, okay? She is in the jungle in the first place because she is trying to get into a coven. And in this world, a coven is not just your, typical definition. I mean, it is, but it's also like a college. You live in a dorm, and you get to study there and take classes, but you also get room and board. And Celine's traveling just a teeny tiny bit, so that sounds pretty good to her at this point. The coven has told her, okay, if you want to get in, you need to go on a magical quest and prove yourself. And she already did one, and they were like, we're underwhelmed. Try again. And why are they making her prove herself so much? Well, magic in this world, all spells have a price. And some are pretty mild. Some people need to, go take a nap. Eat an apple. No big deal. Celine really got the raw end of the deal here, because Celine loses a memory for every spell she casts, and it could be a small memory or it could be a large memory. Unfortunately for her, she doesn't get to choose. So what does this mean for her? Countless, very detailed diaries and journals that fill her apartment, and let me tell you, that apartment, she basically considers postage decor at this point, okay? She's got reminders for every appointment, friend, conversation, you name it, how to use a microwave. I mean, it's pretty bad at this point. But that's why covens are a little nervous about inviting her in, because if you've got a witch who maybe can't remember, I don't know, don't tell humans magic is real, or can't remember the ingredient that makes a spell safe, or a spell period that's really crucial, like how to conceal yourself, ooh, could be a liability. Anyway, back to the very pissed Celine. So Celine is like, I can't believe this. Someone is ruining my very expensive trip that I took to go on this magical quest that I signed up for. I cannot. Ugh, I can't. So she goes stomping through the jungle to try and find the source of this magic that brought the plane down. She is dodging cats, trying not to get eaten by crocodiles. Not kidding. Okay, and let's not even talk about the giant insects and spiders. Ugh. Ugh. She feels the same way I do. Okay, it's relevant. And finally, she gets to this like crazy temple looking thing. So she marches over there, she breaks every lock, seal, curse, barrier, whatever, marches down these stairs, and when she gets to the bottom, there's like this tomb thing, and she's like, okay, magical barrier, boop, I'm just gonna walk through this force field thing, no big deal. And there is this man laying on a slab, and he is gorgeous. Of course he is. It's Laura Thalassa. And she looks down at him, and he kind of wakes up, and he looks over at her, and she's like, WTF is going on? And he's like, hey. And she's like, hey. And he's like, I'm Memnon the Cursed, and you are my missing wife. And she's like, no, the F I am not. And he's like, oh, yes, you are. And by the way, you're the one who cursed me, hence the cursed part of my name. And you're the reason I was down here for a zillion years. Thanks so much for going missing, wifey poo. And she's like, okay. You are a sexy, sexy beast. She doesn't say this aloud, but let me tell you, the yearning in her loins did not go unrecognized. Let me tell you that much. But this is problematic. I'm leaving. You're scaring the crap out of me. I think you're going to do bad, bad things to me and not in a good way. Bye-bye. So she hightails it out of there, tries to redo all the like spells and locks and enchantments as best she can, and she must do a pretty good job because she makes it out of there okay. By the time she gets back to the plane site, after dodging the crocodiles again, the rescue team is there. They get them all back to safety. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, Celine, you saved an entire plane. This totally counts as a magical quest. You defeated some nefarious thing that like brought a plane down. She's like, defeated, right? Not awakened. What? No, didn't say anything. She totally isn't going to tell them about Memnon. That could hurt her chances of getting into the coven, and they're about to let her in because she saved a plane. So she moves into the dorms. Things are going mostly fine. She's having a little trouble remembering things here and there because she's supposed to be practicing magic a lot, and she can't choose what to forget, which is a shame because boy would she like to forget Memnon. And lo and behold, he is indeed a problem because he shows up on campus one day. Bet you saw that coming. But what you probably didn't see coming is that he shows up about the time the murders on campus begin. And that's where I'm going to leave you, because you should read the book. And I bet you really, really want to see if Memnon has something to do with those murders. Sorry, that was terrible, but you really should read the book. I loved it so incredibly much. There's a magical animal companion. I mean, you can't have a witch without a familiar, and it's a variation on a black cat, sort of ish. He's fantastic. The attitude, I mean, think Salem the cat from Sabrina with the dial turned way up. He can't exactly talk, unfortunately, but maybe that's for the best. I feel like he'd swear a lot. Anyway, we go from sticky hot jungle straight into academia. So this has got you covered straight from summer all the way further into fall than we are right now, where I wish we were right now. I hate that it's 90 degrees right now. Did I mention that we're in a heat wave? Okay, it's New Jersey. It shouldn't be 90 degrees in September. Sorry, I'm done. So, the spice absolutely did it for me. Laura Thalassa knows how to do an alpha male. We all know this. But if you're looking at me and saying, Kristen, I hated the Four Horsemen series. I stopped listening to you like 2 minutes ago. I'm just waiting for you to get to the next book. I also did not enjoy the Four Horsemen book. Okay, it was just too much for me. I am not going to get it on with a guy who's like murdering the world and tried to kill me and is dragging me around and like half torturing me. That's not my jam. I DNF'd the first book. That's as far as I made it. This is completely different vibes. Yes, we get some unbelievably amazing enemies to lovers, hate sex. Sorry. I don't know how else to phrase that. Can you say that on the internet? I'm saying it on the internet. But The vibes are much more playful. We do have high stakes. The mystery is actually a lot more involved than I thought it was going to be, so that was really a lot of fun to follow. But the spice, yes. And there's definitely, you can tell that Laura Thlassa has written a lot of books since then. Her writing, I feel like, is so much more elevated, and I found it much more pleasant to read in this book. But if you enjoyed that, this is going to be even better. So please give it a go. If you want a book that has a certain wizard with a lightning-shaped scar, goes to college vibes, but there's also like murders and lots of spice, and it's starring a girl, which I really appreciated, this is a great choice for you. I would say also pick this if the heat does the opposite thing that it does to you than it does to me, and you are more interested in something that's going to make you feel a little hot and bothered under the collar. Next up is the book that I decided to match today. I really thought that it deserved a little bit of extra love because I don't hear a ton about it, and I really, really loved it when I read it last month during the Magical Readathon. It is called Dark and Shallow Lies by Ginny Myers Sane, and it was so good. If you like magic having to do with psychics, this is going to be such an incredible choice for you. So we are headed way far down south, down to New Orleans. Now get on a boat. Now go even farther south down to a teeny tiny island that's only accessible by that boat, and you are going to find yourself in La Cachette. And La Cachette is teeny tiny. We're talking like 103 people. And it's down there that Gray is headed to spend the summer with her grandmother, Honey. Sadly, her mother has passed and is no longer there to spend the summer with. And this summer is going to be very different because unfortunately, 6 months ago, while she was away with her father on the mainland, her twin flame named Alora went missing. And what I did not mention about this island is that it is known as the psychic capital of the world. And you would think that on an island known as the psychic capital of the world, it would be impossible for someone to go missing, right? They go missing, the psychic just goes, I know where it is, let me touch this thing, let me have a vision, let me connect with them. No one has a clue where she is, what happened, if she's okay, if she's alive. They got nothing. Suspicious, right? Suspicious. Yeah, Gray thinks so too. So she's headed down to hopefully solve the mystery and figure out what the heck is going on, as well as reconnect with her other best friends and former lover who live in the town as well. The town is grieving for 2 children who were murdered. They were one of the summer 10, which Gray is. When she was born, there were 10 children who were all born within a 6-month period between the vernal equinox and the autumnal equinox. So that's a lot of kids to be born on a teeny tiny island in one summer. So they're all best friends, they're all extremely close, they all have slightly different psychic powers. So as Gray talks to her friends and tries to investigate and pushes, she uncovers secrets from her grandmother, Honey. She uncovers secrets from her dead mother. She uncovers secrets her friends have been keeping from her. She uncovers secrets her old lover was keeping from her. It's kind of a mess. And just as she thinks she possibly is starting to hit some dead ends, of course, a mysterious boy appears with stormy eyes and electricity in his veins. No, literally electricity in his veins. Like they zap a little when they touch. And she's pretty sure that he is the key to solving this entire mystery because he is super willing to help. Really is starting to give her some answers. And as time goes on, she's starting to realize that either he's the key because he really likes her and wants to help, or because maybe he's the one who hurt her friend Alora in the first place. I'm afraid that's all I can tell you, but know that there is so much more because this book, when it starts to hit the end, the speed that it picks up is positively breakneck. I cannot begin to tell you how quickly I was trying to turn the pages. I am lucky I didn't get a paper cut, let me tell you. Oh my goodness, the end of this book, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. One thing that I have to say that I absolutely loved about this book was the actual writing. The voice felt so authentic. Gray's voice really felt like someone who was on the cusp of adulthood. You got that sense of slight vulnerability while you still felt that she was just only becoming truly aware of her mortality, and you still got that sense of like teenage bravado and that like, I'm probably invincible, right? You remember that feeling, don't you? Where you could probably do anything, get away with anything, and anything was possible. You really could feel that in her voice and the writing. And yet the author found ways to put her own voice in all of the beautiful descriptions of nature and the swamp and the bayou. It was really, really lovely, and it felt completely seamless when she put her voice in there. And you also got some really great instances of wisdom and advice from Grandmother Honey, who is a total gem. You had to love her. When I put this book down, I absolutely felt like I had just gotten back from the Deep South, and I really want to go now. I've never actually been, which is such a shame, but I feel like I have been now, if that makes any sense at all. It was that much of a palpable, tactile experience. It really engaged all of your senses in the best way possible. The magic felt so real and it was so pervasive, I think because it was so grounded in psychic magic, which to me always feels the most realistic and the closest to real life, so it's the most believable. And the peril was constant. What made it so interesting and what made the mystery so great is that as we were going through everything, what tied it all together was at the beginning of every chapter, we're getting these flashbacks from Alora, taking us closer and closer and closer to the end of this incident, whatever it was that happened to her, but it made sense because we're seeing them through Gray's eyes, because Alora is her twin flame and Gray is finally experiencing her psychic awakening as this is occurring. So it makes absolute sense that that connection is there, and we are seeing these tiny snippets as we go of what happened to her. I think she's a great voice, and I'm really excited to see what else Ginny Meyerstein does. I would say make this your pick from this list if you really want to meet a giant alligator named Willie Nelson, and if you believe in those magical cosmic connections that we can't really explain, but we know them when we feel them. Hey, want to talk about a cult? It's totally fine if you don't. You can fast forward to the next book, but before you do, let me say, I'm not a cult book reader either. Usually they're not my thing, but I did give this book 5 stars, and this was one of my top 10 or at least 15 out of the 150 books that I read last year. So maybe take a listen before you decide it's not for you. This was Shea Earnshaw's adult debut in 2021, I think. And I've always been very intimidated by Shea Earnshaw, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if I thought her writing was really highbrow or no, that's not it. I thought her writing was gonna be really scary, okay? And you know what? I wasn't too far off. This book, of all the books on this list, is probably the one that got the most under my skin, and for very good reason. Part of it was that you had no idea what was going on for the vast majority of this book, and by vast majority, I mean like, except for the last 5 pages, and even then, I had questions. I still have questions, Shea Earnshaw. You're never gonna see this video. It's fine. Anyway, it was on purpose that you had no idea what was going on, because you know what? Neither did the characters in the book, so you were right there with them. And that was really, really effective, particularly in a book where, you know, they're trying to be controlled, mind, body, and soul, I guess. I read this in one sitting. Okay, I sat down last summer and I was desperate to find a book that fit a reading prompt for a readathon, and I opened this book with mild to moderate to much trepidation, and I was reading and reading and reading and reading, and then the dogs had to go out, and I carried the book over and opened the door and let them out and read while I waited for them, and continued to read while they did their thing, and then headed back to the couch and finished reading the book. One sitting. I do mean literally one sitting. I had to know what was happening. I couldn't put it down. And the writing was, wow. I wish I could write like this. I really do. I can't. Wow. All that being said, what makes it so incredible and unique is also what makes it incredibly difficult for me to be able to give you a very good description of this book without giving too much away, but I will do my absolute best, and rest assured, I did read the inside flap of this book like 5 times to make sure I wasn't giving too much away, so you're safe. So, we open this book in the dead of winter. I know, I promised summer books. Give me one chapter, and I will remedy this. Okay, we open in the dead of winter and meet a man named Travis Wren. Now, Travis Wren has just been hired by 2 grieving parents whose daughter has been missing for 2 years. I guess it took them a while to find him, or he's really popular. And their daughter, named Maggie, was a children's book writer and illustrator. Now, Maggie's books were really freaking creepy, okay? They probably should not have been in the hands of children. Dead serious. Like, they had unbelievably macabre and really just disturbing images, and the storylines were not appropriate for children, really. Think Grimm's fairy tales are now the new Disney compared to these, and you probably got it just about right. Yeah. But for some reason they were very popular, and yet 2 years ago Maggie went missing. So Travis was hired to go find her, and he is particularly special because if you give him something that was owned and loved by the person who went missing, he is able to touch it and then retrace their last footsteps. So he winds up at this barn and silo, which the police already confirmed was the last sighting of her, and he, yes, is led there and agrees, and he follows the path. And then when his truck can no longer get down this dirt path in the snow, he gets out of his truck, walks further down the footpath, and we never see him again. In fact, no one ever sees him again. And then you turn the page and it says part 2, and you're like, okay. And it's summertime, and you're on a commune that seems kind of okay, called Pastoral, and you're with a guy named Theo, who also seems pretty okay, except he's breaking the #1 rule on the commune, which is do not leave the commune borders, because outside of it is this terrible disease called rot. And it's just like it sounds. It turns everything black and rotten, and it is infecting all the trees and wildlife and bushes outside, and it can infect people too. And if you go outside the borders, you could get it and you could die, and if you bring it in, you could potentially pass it around. And if you go outside, the only way to make sure you're safe is to go through this really horrific ritual that kills like at least half the people who go through it. But if you make it through, hey, yay, you're cured. And if you don't, you were gonna die anyway. So it's fine, whatever. And you know, it was your choice to go outside the borders. That was pretty stupid, right? Yay, groupthink. So Theo has left the border. He has been feeling a little trapped. And when he goes not far past the border, he finds Travis's old truck, and he realizes, wow, this hasn't been here very long. There's some identifying papers. This guy probably, I mean, he must have come to find us. He must have come to Pastoral. I should maybe go talk to our leader about this, but then he would have brought the rot, and we never did a ceremony for anyone, I remember, and no one knew who's really come. I would have remembered, right? Everyone's been here forever. I'm very confused by this. So he heads back and realizes he can't ask their leader, because then he would have to admit that he left the borders, and no one wants to go through the ceremony. So he is panicking and watching for signs of the rot, illness coming on, and meanwhile he's concerned that he might pass it to his wife, Kala, and her sister who's staying with them, B. And meanwhile, Kala and B are also questioning a few things and noticing some things that maybe don't make sense, and finding some things that might indicate maybe the entire world outside has not been consumed by the rot. And if not, that means they're being lied to. And if they're being lied to, just how safe are they? And that's where I have to leave you. This book, the writing is so heart-achingly beautiful. Shea Ernshaw has this way of peeling back the layers of mankind and taking it down to its core. We see the bravest parts and we see the darkest parts. And I have to say, I thought it was so beautifully done, and yet there were thrilling elements. There were elements where you almost got jump scares. I mean, my heart was racing at the end, but you also got that slow, palpable, constant tension as well. And while you did get that sticky summer, because obviously pastoral is not going to have something like AC, it was the weight of oppression that you felt continually weighing on you, not the humidity that really got to you. I would say pick this book if you are ready to skip right over the fall leaves and head straight to the scary boobies, please. This will be a nice little start for you in book form. Next, I'm going to be talking about Sarah Addison Allen's Other Birds. Sarah Addison Allen has become one of my favorite authors very quickly, despite the fact that I've only read 3 of her books, but all of them have been 5 stars for me, and I think she's going to be one of those auto-buy authors for me. So I'm very excited to be talking about this one with you. So this book is magical realism, but with ghosts. I know, it sounds like it should just be straight up fantasy, but it's not, and Sarah Addison Allen can make that happen. The author has a very unique style of writing, and she gets to really showcase that by making sure each and every point of view that she shows in this book has a very distinct voice, which really keeps the book moving, but also gives it a lot of variety and makes it so much fun to read. She also is able to showcase some of her more elevated writing through one of the voices in particular, but she always stops just shy of purple prose. Don't worry, you're not going to be stuck wading through paragraphs of super lavish descriptions if that's not your thing. So the book opens with Zoe, and she's sitting there and she's riding in a cab on her way to an island off the coast of South Carolina, and she's elbowing the stupid empty bird cage next to her because it's making a heck of a lot of noise and rattling about, and it's not supposed to be doing that because it's supposed to be empty, and it looks empty, but nope, it's rattling and squawking around, and luckily the cab driver doesn't notice, but whew, by the time she gets to Delaware condo, she's awfully happy to open it and let her freaking ghost bird pigeon fly around and do his thing, because yes, she has a ghost bird named Pigeon. We're off to a really interesting start already, and the interesting start continues because we find out that she is in the Delaware condominium complex to sort through the condo that her unfortunately deceased mother has left her. It was a gift from her father. They had never really been together, but he was a fairly generous sugar daddy in a really literal sense, I guess. But they were fairly in love, so, and he is now long gone as well. So the condo is kind of all she has left of them. When she gets there, she is greeted by a very interesting cast of characters. It turns out that she will be sharing the condominium complex with 2 estranged sisters, one of which whom she meets right away. She's quite the busybody. She is a delightful, not delightful. She is a really unpleasant woman named Liz, who immediately tells Zoe, "Hi, I don't want you here. Go away." A chef who you think would be a super fantastic neighbor, but he's kind of lost his taste for life. Sorry, I really like puns. And 3 ghosts. So Pigeon should be right at home in the complex. She settles in, tries to get a good night's sleep. It doesn't really go well. You never get a great night's sleep the first night you're in any new place, but she hears a lot of like furniture moving and banging, and she's like, why? This is totally Liz getting revenge for me moving in. She's doing this on purpose, rearranging her furniture. Thinks a bunch, Liz, you jerk. And she gets up the next morning and feels kind of guilty because it turns out Liz has been removed from this mortal plane by forcible means during the night. So whoops, she heard the murder of Liz and did nothing about it. She does tell this to the police. The police are like, "Congratulations, you're now part of our investigation because you overheard a murder." And she's like, "Fantastic." So her and the other inhabitants of the complex are trying to work out why someone would murder Liz. I mean, minus the fact that she's just generally a really unpleasant, nasty person. And it turns out that there was this very famous author who used to live on the island, which by the way is also famous for making marshmallows. It's a really cute little book. There are some very sweet moments mixed in with a lot of other moving pieces. It makes for a really, really fun time. You're never bored, okay? You're never bored. Anyway, it turns out this author supposedly lives on this island, and he wrote a book about this island, and it sold millions of copies. Think like bestseller for years, hugest hit. Everybody has a paperback copy. Even in the apartment she inherited, there is a copy. And supposedly there is another book that was never published by this author, and the pages are hidden somewhere in this condo complex. And so now the inhabitants are like, oh God, Liz probably knew where they were. That's why she was offed. And whoever did it probably realized she knew where they were and was trying to find them first. And whoever can get to this book first, okay, the publishing rights have been made known to be worth millions. So they're trying to not get in the way of the police, not get in trouble themselves by the dangerous person who offed Liz, find the papers, potentially find out who the author is since he's this mysterious recluse who no one actually knows who he is, and figure out who killed Liz as well. There are a lot of mysteries and moving parts going on in this island, and yet by the time you get to the end, I was in tears, because after this rollicking story where everyone's slowly becoming friends and solving mysteries, Sarah Addison Allen does what she does best. And she goes, you know what? We had a great time, but you totally forgot what this story was about in the first place. And I did. And she got me. And it was beautiful. So I will say that the point of view shifts were part of what made this so interesting, as I mentioned earlier, because they also meant that you were never completely on solid ground at any point in the book. Just as soon as you were getting used to one character's voice, everything shifted, and instead of getting the answers you thought you were just about to get in the next chapter, you just got more questions. And ordinarily, this is the kind of thing that I would think was gimmicky and find frustrating, but instead it moved the story forward in a really beautiful way. Think Love Actually. You're just getting all these intertwined stories, and you're just learning more about the characters, and instead of being frustrating, it's endearing, and you're just falling in love with them more and more as the story goes on. This book will absolutely haunt you. I know. Ha, ghosts. I know. I'm sorry. But it will. This is one that stuck with me for a really long time after I finished it. I had to go call my mom when I finished it, in fact, and you may feel the need to do the same. Like I said, you know, when you get to the end, it's called Other Birds for a reason, and you will finally understand why, and it's bittersweet and heartbreakingly beautiful. Wow, yeah, I still remember it very, very vividly to this day. But in a good way, I promise. And I'm such an easy crier. Don't take this as this is gonna tear your heart out, Heart of Achilles kind of book. It's not like that. I would say read this book if you loved The Wishing Game by Meg Schaffer. That was also huge this summer. This has very similar feels and vibes. I think there are a lot of similarities that you will find between the two books. If your soul needs just a little balm right now, if you need something kind of cathartic, if you feel like you just need a little hope and healing right now, despite the fact that I almost got a little choked up there, this is probably the right choice for you on this list. We have This Poison Heart by Kaylin Bayron, and I haven't seen this a ton on BookTube, which is a shame, because not only is the cover beautiful, but what's under the cover is also pretty darn fantastic. And I am absolutely kicking myself, because I read this last summer, I flipped out, I loved it, and I thought it was an older book, and it turns out, no, you great big dumb idiot, you bought this pretty much right after it came out, and congratulations, it ends on a cliffhanger. But you have no excuse, okay? It ends on a cliffhanger, but the sequel's already out, so you are all good to go. This Poison Heart is about a lovely girl named Bree who lives in New York City with her two moms who run a flower shop, and they live in a cute little apartment. And the whole flower shop thing is kind of perfect because Bree, as you possibly may have guessed from the cover, has plant magic. And this plant magic works in a couple of different ways. One, she can make plants grow and also revive them, which is great when you've got a wilting bouquet that's not going to sell, and hey, Brie can pop in and like, hi moms, I'm just going to go like fluff up the dying plants. Perfect, no waste. Second, she is impervious to plant poison, which actually she discovered completely by accident, and thank God for that one, because she almost got off by hemlock when she was a kid. Whoops! Last one, and possibly the one I like best, the strangest, is that plants have a magical affinity towards her, which means tree branches and trees will sway towards her as if they're in the wind. Not totally weird, but branches will like reach down and pet her. That's where it gets a little weird. Okay, and luckily she lives in a city, so urban jungle, we don't have a ton of plant problems where people are going to notice, but occasionally a tree will lean towards her and a branch will come down and brush her. And since people are great big idiots and love to convince themselves that no, I did not see that strange thing because I am not crazy and cannot afford therapy, thank you American healthcare system, she does okay. You know, no one's really picked up on anything strange yet. Now, unfortunately for them, living in New York City is extremely expensive, and the apartment rent has just gone up again. The rent on their shop has gone up again, and they are struggling just a little bit. So it's kind of perfect timing, not saying that a dead relative ever comes at the perfect time, but if you're gonna have a dead relative come, you know. Her estranged Aunt Circe leaves them this massive dilapidated, this thing is falling apart, okay, estate in upstate New York. And her moms are kind of like, well, you're on summer break. We could sublet the apartment, save a ton of money to help us get through the year when you do have school, and go live up there for the summer. It could be really nice. We'd be in nature, we'd be out of the hot, sticky, miserable city, and we have plenty of people to help run the flower shop. We could pop down on the weekends, commute a little bit. It's only 2 hours away. And Brie's like, I mean, yeah, my friend's going on vacation. Like, this is fine. I'm good with this. She gets up there, is slightly overwhelmed by suddenly being by like an entire garden and lawn and all these trees like leaning in towards her. She works it out. However, what she absolutely did not expect is that her Aunt Circe has left letters lying about this house, like cookie crumbs, filled with hints at this crazy mystery about her and her Aunt Circe and her mother and their entire heritage and this weird plant power thing they have going on and all sorts of stuff, their entire family legacy, and a key. And she goes out to the garden and she's like, I thought I saw a keyhole somewhere. Sure enough, this key goes into a secret garden, and this secret garden is absolutely positively only safe for Brie because it contains only the most poisonous plants in the world. And we're talking not just like poison ivy. We're talking the kinds of plants that if you touch them, they will kill you. If you get cut on them, they will kill you. If you breathe the air near them, they will kill you. Are you seeing the pattern here? So Brie is like, okay. Clearly this whole plant power thing is absolutely inherited. This is insane. There's a lot of mystery going on here. Let me see if I can start figuring some stuff out. And that's kind of where the description on the inside flap of the book leaves you. So I don't want to say too much more because that seems unfair to you and unfair to the author. Just know that that's only the first very little bit. This book takes off. She makes friends. The mystery really picks up speed. There is magic spells and potions and all kinds of stuff going on. This book is witchy potion making and plant magic at its absolute best. And since the description was, well, for me, short, I'm going to try and convince you to read this wonderful book that absolutely leaves off on quite the cliffhanger. But I told you, second book's out, by telling you like my 5 favorite elements that are in this book. Okay, ready? Here we go. Plant magic, and not just plant magic, but unique plant magic. I don't think I've ever seen it done quite this way. way before in terms of the plants petting her. I loved it. It was kind of funny, kind of adorable. They were almost like pets at points. It was really sweet and I enjoyed it. And let me tell you that being impervious to poison thing absolutely came into play so many times it is not even funny. Number 2, the inherited falling apart giant estate. Okay, this happens all the times in books and I love it every single time. Every single time it gets me. I see it in a description. I'm like, I'm gonna buy you. I love it. By the way, since this happens all the time in books, where's my house? Where's my dilapidated mansion to move into? Please, not haunted. Super haunted anyway, preferably. Thanks. Okay, number 3, a really sweet YA romance that just blossoms. I'm sorry. I know. Throughout the book. And at first I thought this was going to be a really awkward love triangle, but they clear it up fairly quickly and we absolutely see who's going to be the main love interest, and it is really sweet. It really tugged at my heartstrings. I thought that the build was very believable, that all of the conflicts were not superficial, but actually made perfect sense. And there was no third act awkward breakup thing that came out of nowhere or was a stupid miscommunication. Everything really had a purpose and came from fundamental differences. 4, we had lots of puzzles and mysteries, which I loved, but what I really loved was that they were all rooted in Greek mythology. And if you don't know a ton about Greek mythology, that is absolutely okay, because neither did Bree. And so she decided to write to one of her school teachers, since the internet was kind of spotty, use books that were around the house, and when the internet was up, use the internet to do plenty of research, and we got all of the backstories that we needed on all of the characters that were mentioned. You know, like I said, her aunt was named Circe. There were plenty of other goddesses and gods and references to Greek mythology, and I love Greek mythology. And to see it done so well in a YA book where maybe people might not be so well versed in it, and yet it wasn't overdone to the point of being a yawn fest for those of us who are, I was thrilled. I thought it was really terrific and a great introduction and way of hooking in some more new fans of Greek mythology, perhaps. And number 5, there's an actual secret garden. Come on. And the fact that it's poisonous, I mean, I'm not gonna complain. That was pretty fun. So I would say this one should be your pick. If you have a green thumb, you are a proud plant parent, and if you want to finally read something with lots of Greek mythology that is not going to make you cry, because apparently that is just about impossible for authors, I am looking at you, Song of Achilles. Still scarred. Now, if you are asking yourself what I'm going to be reading this week, since I clearly have read all of the books that I've recommended to you, because how could I recommend them to you if I hadn't read them? That would be weird. I'm going to be reading Vampires, Hearts, and Other Dead Things by Margie Fuston, and I chose this because it takes place down in New Orleans in the summer, and I'm not sure it gets much warmer than that. I'm feeling the vibes. So here's the description. So Victoria and her dad share an obsession of all things vampire, and this is amazing because the world has just found out that vampires are real. What's not amazing is that vampires pretty much immediately had to go back into hiding because humans decided that they were a threat. This is also particularly unfortunate because Victoria's father has just been diagnosed with terminal cancer. But Victoria, oh no, she is not one to give up. Instead, she enlists the help of her estranged best friend Henry, who I'm gonna go out on a limb here and guess that he has some unrequited feelings for our gal Victoria because it's a YA book. There's pink on the cover. And they march on, will fly on down to New Orleans because Victoria has a plan. She has decided that she is going to find one of the vampires in hiding, convince him or her to turn her into a vampire, and then go on back home just in time to save her dad and turn him into a vampire and give him immortal life. So he doesn't have to die and they can live forever watching Buffy reruns, I guess. Honestly, it's not the worst plan I've ever heard in a book. Margie Fuston also wrote The Coldest Girl in Cold Town, and additionally wrote They All Die at the End. So now I'm a little nervous, and I definitely believe the review that said this book was going to be heart-wrenching. So please send tissues. Hopefully I'll be able to tell you how it goes in a reading wrap-up at some point. Fingers crossed. But that's it for me today. Thank you so much for tuning into my video. It was so exciting to finally get to talk about actual books that I read. I know I rambled a bit. I know I talked too much. I'm never going to be able to do super short videos. I don't know how other booktubers do it and give you such succinct opinions and descriptions of books, because I always want more. I always want to know just a little bit more, and I always want to share just a little bit more. So here we are. But thank you so much for joining me. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed it and want to see more slightly longer descriptions of books and reviews, I guess. Please leave a comment. Let me know if you're going to read any of these books, or if you have what you thought, or if you have any other recommendations, if you think you have the perfect transitional book for me, maybe one that won't make me cry. And subscribe if you feel so inclined. That would be amazing. But I'll let you get back to your book, and maybe you'll pick one of these recommendations. I really hope you enjoy it if you do. Bye.